My age is 31. Right now I'm trying to get into law school.
I don't think I'll ever want to totally close down my law practice because there's some things about that I enjoy and I can really help people. But I want to get into a totally different line of work.
I want to help people with health and fitness and career direction and help people realize their full potential.
I plan to start another business involving furniture and want to accomplish the photo reading whole mind system to get a wide prospect of what I can do to advance in that.
I was in college, my reading speed was about 110 words a minute, if that. And I was a history major, history, Asian area studies major, and it really hampered me. Love the material, but I could not finish the material.
Of course, just trying to learn the kinds of things that I'm going to need to move into another business, while at the same time I'm still practicing law because I still have to make a living, means I have this tremendous time problem.
One of the things we're going to do today is we are going to review the 5 steps of the whole mind reading system with you, and we will want you to do some participation in that. So we would like you to have a book that you want, one, to get really in depth and in detail on that book.
I did the photo reading seminar, which was great. I loved it. It was a vacation for the mind.
The ability to photo read is the cornerstone of everything that I'm going to do as far as my future education, my legal education. It's integral to my thinking.
It helps me immensely to review the basics of the photo reading process because everything and anything I've ever done in sports or martial arts, chiropractic, it all starts with the basics.
It's about time, I think, that it's a renewal and a refresher of the 5 steps of photo reading.
Prepare, preview, photo read, activate, and rapid read. Go through the processes and then they become part of yourself, almost like second nature.
Well, when you know the steps better, the process is more fluid for you.
It just sort of reminds you about what are the key stages, because to bring them up, they must be important enough.
So we're going to start with that first one, which is prepare, right. So with prepare, there are really 2 parts, and these 2 parts are what we'll be doing no matter what other step of the system is involved. So the first thing that we do is purpose is key, purpose is in the center, purpose, without it, why bother?
Breaking it down, skimming through the book, finding out, where to look for is probably the hardest part for me. The anxiousness of, am I going to miss something in the book? Is there something in there that I'm not going to find? Or, those are probably the things that worry me the most. But then that all goes back to that I need to make sure I have a good purpose of why I'm reading this. What are my questions of it?
If you went to a travel agent and just said, hello, I'd like a ticket, and they might ask you some important questions. They might want to know what kind of climate you wanted to go to. They might want to know how long you were going to go for. They might want to know how many countries you wanted to travel to. So all of those things are included in prepare, because with prepare, what we're really looking at is how are we going to apply all this information in this book? What are we going to do with that? What is the chunk size that we need? It's easy to opt out and say, oh, I've just got to have it all. I've just got to have it all. No. Most of the time what we need is some information that is pertinent, valuable, important to us.
The unconscious can help in a tremendous way the conscious mind when you get the skills just to fit them together.
Just at the start, think about why do you want the book, and all the other stages will come to you.
These authors, when they write their book, they really do not think that you're going to carry around the entire word for word for word for word for word understanding of their book. What they know is that you're going to synthesize that into something that is useful for you. One of the things that we discovered a long, long time ago was the value of having a point of attention. Now, we have points of attention or points of focus for almost everything that we do. whether when we're talking, when we're presenting, when we're driving a car, when we're doing, any particular sport. But for reading, what they discovered with these incredibly effective readers was that there was a point of attention that really resided sort of about 12 to 14 inches above and behind the head. Now, what that is basically is an opportunity for you to do just a little bit of a key unlock of attention in whatever way works for you. You might see it. Come on, let's say you might see the tangerine. Okay, you might talk to yourself about, oh, there's a funny little thing floating up above there. Oh, yes, for the auditories. Or you might even just feel it. Just feel it. Now, doesn't mean you got to keep checking on that thing every single moment while you're reading, because otherwise the reading's not going to be very effective. It simply gets you into an ideal state. Sports figures would call that relaxed alertness or the flow. Whatever we call it, it's that state of, oh yeah.
To go into the state is after a time no more so difficult when you learned it for a while. When you take a deep breath and all this relaxation goes to your body, so you calm down.
It's coming down to be in the moment, to forget about thinking about what you should be doing, to bring all your awareness down to exactly what you're doing, and this comes from just being aware of your senses and being in the flow.
Now, the next step Cheryl's going to take us into is, what's that second step of the system? You got it. All right.
All right, preview. All right, there's 3 parts to the preview. The first thing is to survey. What you want to do is it's like going out and just taking a look over what do you have. You look at the front cover, the back cover, the index, the table of contents. You read the last page, the last page and the first page. May even have time to look at the foreword or the introduction. All right, so those are the preview things. So that would be survey. Those are the areas. Your purpose of that is to find the structure of the book, because the author will put key bits of information in certain places, and you want to know what that is, so you can easily find it. All right. Then you want to pull out trigger words. If your book is new to you, or the subject matter in your book is new to you, you may not know the vocabulary that the author is going to be using to describe the subject. So you want to be able to pull out trigger words. That is what you might put down on your mind map when you write down, when you're doing a preview and then also an activation later. Now, the reason and the value of these trigger words or phrases is that's how you formulate your questions you want all your answers to. Because it's very important to be able to ask the questions you want answered by the author, as if they're standing there or sitting there over a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, and you want to just have a conversation with them. You want your book to come alive, and you can do that with questions. Now, all the trigger words you put down on your page, you may not choose to go into any deeper review on, but there will be some that will definitely be critical and important to you. So some may fall to the wayside and others will surface as really important. And of course, that's all based on what? Your purpose. Your purpose, not the author's purpose for writing the book, but your purpose for reading the book.
You are going to photo read the book through a lens. And the lens is the purpose you have studied.
And then before you do anything else, you want to take a review, because at the time of the review, you can stop and decide what it is you've already discovered, check and see whether that information is going to be relevant and you believe the book is going to be relevant to your purpose, because then you get to decide what more you want from that book or not want from that book.
Now, this is step 3. This is the flip part. Is that we're going to take just a little bit more time to go into a bit more depth on the photo reading process. With photo reading, what happens is that so many people are not quite sure what's happening because we're moving this information into a different part of our mind. And as a result of that, the conscious mind gets finished with a photo reading process and it says, well, what just happened here? You know, I wasn't participating in this, and therefore, did anything just happen here when I was photo reading? Certainly one of the experiments that I used to set up for myself over and over again was how to allow that photo reading step of the system to be okay without my little voice coming in and starting to critique or judge what I had just done as being insignificant or unuseful or whatever. Quite honestly, this is one of the most, definitely unusual, but most useful of all steps of the system from my perspective. Because what it does is that it enters in this information as a whole. I do not have to, as I did in regular reading, start with one word at a time, and pretty soon I'd entered as many words as I could have, and I started dropping them out the back, and so I got to the end of the page, and I had absolutely no idea what I just read. This gives you the opportunity, and certainly gives your inner mind the opportunity to take the book in almost as a whole, so that your brain, then your inner mind, whatever you want to call the non-conscious part of you, can begin to create connections. And it is those neural connections inside that are being made, and I would say, because I believe that memory is cellular, that it is within your entire body, that's what gives you the ease when you start to activate and get the information back. So here we've got this opportunity to become familiar with the information in about 3 to 5 minutes. I mean, what more do you want out of reading? Now that you've done the preview that Cheryl was talking about, sometimes you refine your purpose. You don't really know, is this now what I think I want to get out of the book? And so my purpose may become more general, it may become more detailed at that point. But I am going to prepare my mind again. The next thing I'm going to do as a photo reader is know that I have different levels of relaxation that I can get to that are going to make a difference in how I process information. I cannot even conceive of picking up a book anymore without getting into that state of relaxed alertness as a minimum. Now, with photo reading, however, we are going to go one sort of level of relaxation deeper. So one of the things we talk about is that you can wire this up to 3 counts, 3, 2, 1. What happens then is you take a nice deep breath in, hold it and gently exhale, and then you just sort of let this wave of relaxation relax your entire body. So physically, you get to relax. And I'd photo read a book a day just for the fact that it allows me to stop what I'm doing and relax a little bit. And that's, by the way, wired up to the number 3. Then number 2, deep breath in, gently exhale, relax. That reminds me to bring my attention. Now this says, not now, not now. Now you're going to photo read. Relax. 2, relax. And then 1, I take another deep breath in. All that's saying is I can go to a resource level of mind. Now, some of you visualize easily. You might see a beautiful plant or flower. Some of you who hear well might be talking to yourself about what this place might look like. Some of you who are highly kinesthetic would feel this place of ultimate relaxation for yourself. Now, after you have given yourself that opportunity to relax, then the next thing that you do is you state and you say your affirmations, and that's where this lady's going to help you a little bit more with the affirmations for photo reading, and then you begin.
All right, the reason we want to talk about affirmations now is because I'll be leading you into the photo read with your photo reading book, with the book that you've selected, all right, so that you know the affirmations and you've heard them through my voice. So once we go through the 3, 2, 1 countdown, and you're in your resource level of awareness, then I will say these and you will listen to them and say them to yourself. As I photo read, my concentration is absolute. All that I photo read makes a lasting impression on my inner mind and will be available to me. And I usually say, as I desire, or something like that. Just, I might add something to that. And I desire the information in this book, and you state the title and perhaps the author if that's important to you, for my purpose of, and then in your own words, you state your purpose. So those are the affirmations we'll be using. All right?
That sounds good to me.
All right. Photo focus. Yes, we just want to make sure we have the photo focus. Now, Lynette will have to demonstrate this again because with my holding the handheld microphone.
We're going to shift this very soon.
All right.
She gets it. All right.
So, we're going to look at both pages simultaneously. So, the way to do that, you look at all four corners, 1, 2, 3, 4, at the same time. All right?
Not round and round, just...
Yeah, so you're looking you're seeing them without looking at each corner individually. So you are just looking so you see all four corners. All right. And yes, the print will be out of focus. All right. And what else do we need to say? If you like to do this, you can actually pretend or you can imagine there is an imaginary X that connects the dots across the page. Now look for the white space as opposed to the print itself, because if you're looking at the white space, what is going into the inner mind? What is making the impression? It's a lot like a negative. All right. And that's it. Four corners, white space, looking simultaneously. Our eyes will be in a fixed position as opposed to sweeping the page down or left or right. So it's looking both pages simultaneously as if you're taking a picture.
You just see the four corners, and if you just see the lines in between, then you're in the ideal state.
And if you are familiar with the blip, you get this rather unusual third page right down the middle. It looks like a little blip of a page, and that's your photo focus.
The main thing is, if we can see the four corners, the information is going to go directly into the inner mind. So the next thing is page turning. The easiest way to do it, not the only way, the easiest way is simply to do a quick flick with your book to get a little air between the pages, okay? And then as you're going up, you push with one thumb, go up, grab at the top, pull toward you. You're going to find that you actually can turn pages faster doing it that way. Now, how fast do you go is the big question, of course. And what we typically start people with is a rate of about 25,000 words per minute. And that is corresponding to a page turn every 2 seconds, which is why we say a page per second. Okay. Every 2 seconds, it's a nice turn. Now, if you use your chant as a marker or a pacer, that will work very well for you. So you might want to do it, relax, relax.
If you like musical intelligence and you like kinesthetic feel to the pages and you like the snapping of the pages, that'll all help you get into state and stay in state to maintain that steady state. And then, of course, in closing, you always affirm your mastery of the material, that you have that material in you and it is available to you.
These are just, by the way, the affirmations that come at the very end of the photo reading experience as well. I acknowledge all feelings acquired from the photo reading of the book and allow my inner mind to process them. It's also, I'm curious in how many ways this information is going to support me. You can use a variety of those kinds of affirmations, but for me, what that does is that when that little voice is doing all the, what'd you just do there? What'd you just do? You just flipped those pages. Did you get anything out of that? What this does instead is that it locks the information. It's like pressing save after I've typed a whole bunch of data into the computer. And I really like things saved. So my affirmations are telling my mind what I want to accomplish.
Because we also know that the first time we've all photo read is that we close the book and we go to that conscious part of our mind and we look for that information to be there. And it's not. So then we need to overcome that belief that it's not there, because of course it's not in the conscious mind, it's in the other than conscious or non-conscious mind, because that's what did the photo read.
All right. So, are we ready to activate? Yes. Of course, because the fourth part of the system is all about activation. Because when we start this process, it's very important that we begin to pay attention to the minute little changes in our behavior, our results, what's happening with us, so that we can begin to experience some of the larger changes that also come into our lives as well. And so by noticing something, we say, I paid attention to this part, this gift that was given to me by my inner mind. And I say, yep, that really feels good, and I get to play with it and stay with it.
What I think is important for me is that improving this ability to listen when my inner mind sort of tells me to stop and take a look at what I need to know. And I'm learning to pick up those signals. And sometimes I don't do that always in normal activation sessions. I just go through and I pick stuff as a combination of my logical and intuitive mind. I still do that, but I'd like to have more intuition in the process.
Now sometimes I do an experiment with photo reading and nothing happens. And I get into this step called activation, and you'd think I'd never photo read the book. And at that point, it's time to own that experience that, wow, nothing did happen. Step back, say, so how am I going to do it in a different way next time? It's not about good, bad, or indifferent. It's about how am I going to do it a different way next time? Because experiments get to have different kinds of results. Sometimes your experiments really work. Sometimes your experiments really don't work. And that's simply the feedback that you get from those. What you want to be able to do, though, is continue to stay with that process, playing with it, and start the whole thing over again. So activation is about queuing up the associations that have already started to be connected inside of the brain as a result of your having photo-read that book. All right. So it's the queuing up of those associations that we really want to pay attention to. Now, we have a wide variety of ways to activate. One of the things that we can do is post-view. Cheryl alluded to that earlier today, that when sometimes we do a very shortened preview, and then after we photo read, we go into something else that we call a post-view. Now, what that really means is that we're taking a look, again, more of a survey. We're going after pretty much the same things as in the preview. And we'll talk about that in just a moment. We also are going to do incubation, which you did during your break, so you've already got that one handled. That's wonderful. Mind probing. Cheryl's going to talk about mind probing. She's also going to talk about mind mapping. We're going to do these a little bit out of sequence, and then I'm going to handle reading and dipping and also skittering. Those are all various ways that you can become very active with the material, that you can take ownership of what parts of this book, what words and thoughts of this author belong to you. Because you don't need all of them. Don't need all of them. But you want some of them. You want the ones that are important to your purpose. So again, we're right back to that central piece of purpose. How am I going to now get to a place where this is the next cut? This is the next purpose that I have to bring this information into, usefulness to me. Okay, so while I'm here, we're going to start, as I said, with this piece of previewing plus post-viewing. One of the things that Paul and Win Wenger then discussed and decided to incorporate in this class was, hey, maybe it's better to put the non-conscious information in first and then go to the preview. Because what happens is so many people do a preview, then they photo read. Then they think, oh, all that I know from this photo reading is what I got from the preview. Anybody ever thought that? Yeah. Okay. And so he says, if that's your trap, then you notice that. And you experiment with doing it in a couple of different ways. And one of the ways that you might do it in a different way is to keep your preview so short that basically you're doing the front and back flaps, table of contents. You're saying, yeah, this is the book for me. I think I want this, this, and this maybe, or I've got a quick purpose of it. And then I photo read. I put it all into my non-conscious mind, start those connections happening. Then what I do is, the next piece is that I come right after that and I post view. And the nice thing about this is that for those of us who need immediate gratification, we have something to do right after photo reading, which is really quite handy. And so there what we're doing is we're allowing ourselves anywhere from 6 to 12 minutes, depending on the size of the book, the complexity, and so forth. And we begin to do a little more intensive preview, but because it's after photo reading, we call it post view. Okay, what happens at that point then is that we might be looking at the front and back cover. We might be going through picking out more trigger words. We might be looking at more of the bold print, more of the chapter headings. But more than that, what we typically find ourselves doing in post viewing is that we start looking at our trigger words or thinking about the kinds of questions that we want to handle later on in activation. And so with that as my setup, Cheryl's going to take us on into how do we set really good questions with mind probing.
After post viewing, and before you do any other activation, the incubation is a critical piece. And we recommend taking up to 24 hours for incubation. And I'm sure you've all had this experience where you have been working on something that's complex and you're trying to get it all put together and you want to get it done, but you get to a point where you're stuck in it. And so the best thing to do is to get away from it. So that's incubation, getting away from it. So it fits really nicely after photo reading and after the post view.
I think I found incubation really useful after I've given my inner mind an objective, a purpose to sort of tie everything together. When I like to post view almost immediately after I photo read, and that gives me an idea of what I want out of the book.
Always previously with regular reading, I worried that if I waited 20 minutes or 30 minutes between finishing the chapter from when I started it, that I wouldn't remember what it was I read at the beginning, and the end wouldn't make any sense to me. But now incubation allows for that information to percolate sort of through my brain cells, and I know that it's going to be available to me when I come back to it at a later date.
I've noticed that with the 24 hours of incubation, my mind seems to work better. It's almost as if it gels together.
After previewing or post-viewing, you will have a list of trigger words or a mind map with trigger words scattered around it. And that's where you get your mind-probing questions.
When I first took photo reading, as we found out long time ago, we really only used super reading and dipping. And what we found out was that, sometimes it's just what is really important. So as I go down, it's almost as though I can say, not this, not this, not this, not this. Aha, it's this that's important.
I was pretty surprised how easy it was to learn to super read and dip. It's amazing how you can kind of glide over the words and your mind will just stop when you see that word that you need.
Paul's metaphor originally for super reading and dipping was that of Superman flying over the planet, finding trouble in River City, swooping down, fixing the trouble, not deciding to set up long-term housing projects at that point, but getting up and flying on. That's a great metaphor. And in different countries that I've been in, we've had everything from pelicans looking for the fish delight of the day, going down and getting it, to snorkelers, to being in the supermarket and knowing that you don't have to look through every single head of lettuce if all you came in for was a can of soup. So lots of different ways of approaching this, but all of them, it's how do I get to the essence? How do I get to those points, those particular answers to the questions that I have asked, in other words, those mind probes that I have put in place, are going to be leading me to my answers. The better my questions, the better my activation, every single time.
I really was shocked that once you start to force your mind to photo read, just kind of push it over the edge, how much easier it is to read just at twice the regular reading speed that you read before, and still get just as much out of it.
Now, there are certain times when you really need more detail. You're not going after essence. You're not going after just the answers to 1 or 2 or 3 questions. Instead, you have to have a more uniform level of detail. And it may be, as Cheryl was alluding to earlier, that you're taking a test on a particular chapter in a book. Or it may be that you're reading something that is a protocol. And I used to teach a lot of nuclear power plants. Very important for those people not to miss a step. I really don't want the people that are handling any of the nuclear power in this country to miss a step. So, sometimes the level of detail is more important than at other times. So what we have to offer, and again, Dr. Bennett and I will be talking about the various forms of activation later on this week. But one of the most important things is how we can go about skittering to take in a more comprehensive understanding of a particular chapter, a particular section, or an entire book if we choose to do so. If this is a paragraph, nice long paragraph, what we would do is we would rhythmically peruse. That's moving along the top of the sentence, like that. And then we would, feeling like we have that topic sentence, that first sentence, we would go through and pick up a word, 2 words, 3 words, randomly through the rest of the paragraph. And as long as we had a sense that we knew what this particular sentence was saying to us, we'd be fine. We'd be fine. And we could trust that our non-conscious mind, with the photo reading, laid down in before the skittering, was going to help us hold, remember, utilize this information. And you can play around with it. I know that Dr. Bennett will give us lots of different, ways that you can do it in a circular pattern, in a zigzag, whatever. For me, the random pattern seems to work very well, so that's obviously what I use. We use what works well for us. And I think that that's the important thing for you to remember, too, is to find what works. If something isn't, how are you going to adapt it so that it does? So, how many of you are willing to try a little skittering? All right.
Now, what I wanted to wrap up for Lynette is we did those two together so that we have a contrast between what super reading and dipping is and skittering. So you see that there's 2 ways to do that. And of course, you all know as far as being photo readers is that you want a whole flexible range of reading speeds, from rhythmic perusal, which we already talked about, which we akin to regular reading or similar to regular reading, only more fluid. And then we've got our super reading and dipping, and then we have skittering if we need more detail. All right. And then we'll move into rapid reading, which is actually closer to the photo reading process. Now for me, photo reading, the whole system came together with the mind mapping process. I'm a kinesthetic. I'm very good with spatial layout. So it really was what helped me know when I know something from a book.
I love mind mapping.
Mind mapping's great. It gives you a different way of activating.
This was one of them that I did during the power day. Kind of like purpose up here, trigger words.
You could organize in a different way, in a spatial way, what the steps are, so you can just look at it and see it.
And the mind map is going to be a living document, updated every time you need it.
All of the different concepts, different colors. It's just fun. It's just so quick and effective that I love it.
The title goes in the center, then you radiate all key ideas around it, and we recommend that you use as few words as possible on your lines here. And the purpose of that is so that this becomes a trigger to everything you know about that piece?
I think the mind map is going to be overall the absolute best because it incorporates, so much, the writing down and thinking about it and using the different colors. So I'm going to try to mind map as much as I possibly can so it becomes just second nature and I get used to it.
Now, if we divided this room into two groups, and one group was given 100 animals to memorize, we take the other group and we say to you, we want you to take those 100 animals and categorize them into meaningful arrangements. How do those animals fit together? Now I say, okay, today is test day. You do the test. Which group do you believe has more of those animals memorized? That group, because they've done this. They've organized and integrated the material so that it's meaningful and it has relationship.
So here we are. We've got this amazing tool called mind mapping, which is going to give us an opportunity to hold in place those kinds of ideas that really matter to us. And they're going to be such an interesting little hook that we're going to be able to remember them for a long, long time.
Now, the fifth step of the process is rapid reading. It comes at the end of the whole mind reading system after prepare, preview, photo read, and all the activation steps that you've done. It is the most like regular reading in the sense that when you do this on, say, an entire book, it is from beginning through the book all the way to the end. So it's more like regular reading. However, you don't put the book down until you're done with a rapid read. So it's not like pleasure reading where you may read for a little while and then go, oh, I'm going to go eat dinner or whatever, and then you come back and pick it up later and read some more. Rapid reading is from beginning to all the way to the end in one sitting. It's very flexible because you've already photo-read this book. You've already super-read and dipped sections. You may have already skittered sections. You may have rhythmic perusal some of these sections. So it will look as if you're photo-reading at times. It'll look like you're super-reading and dipping. It may be skittering, just looking at the topic sentence and allowing your eyes to jump around. All right? And then super reading again. It may be photo reading. Because obviously you will have a high level of understanding of the book if you've been through all 4 sections before you do your rapid read. Because as long as you have a strong purpose for your rapid read, then that is a valid reason to rapid read. Now, as a new-time photo reader, it might be valid to rapid read something in order to validate that you got everything through your activation steps and onto your mind map. So there's steps. The more you get confident as a rapid reader or as a photo reader and more confident in your activation, you'll know whether you need to rapid read or not. And you can let go at the time when you're done. We recognize that flexibility is the key to the whole mind reading system, is being able to take these steps, all of the steps, and being able to use them as they are designed and also as they suit your needs and your purpose.
And I think the key that got unlocked, that unlocked the door for me this week was that you can use those in lots of different combinations. There's no one right way to read. Here's a whole bunch of tools, and maybe you need to read something like a novel that you just want to enjoy and brisk through. There are certain ways you would activate that. On the complete other end of the spectrum, maybe there's a technical book that's very rich in detail that you really need to get every word of. And you have to use a lot more of the activation tools and spend a lot more time to get the detail, more time being a relative thing, I guess, to someone who photo reads. But between those two broad ends of the spectrum, there are lots of different tools and lots of different ways that I now have at my disposal that I can use to activate a book and to get the pieces and parts out of the book that I want.
Now I just want to talk about levels of comprehension, because this level series of hierarchical steps of of comprehension fit nicely with the steps of the whole mind reading system. If you don't know anything about a book, the prepare step helps you get awareness, all right? And the preview step helps you get awareness, because in that you start to know a little bit about the subject matter. You don't know a lot yet, but you know something, and from there you get to decide whether it's relevant or important to you. And then after you photo read the book and the materials, Then we say you're getting to the level of familiarity. And it usually becomes obvious at the point when you go back in and start activating material. Because it's then you're going, this seems familiar. Yes, that I get a sense of that. I'm getting to understand that. And that would come after photo reading. And that's your familiarity. Then knowledge really takes place, and it seats itself, as I like to say, when you've done your activation steps. Now, activation steps are layering, in the sense that after you photo read and you want deeper and deeper knowledge and greater detail, you can do 15 minutes, 20 minutes, a half an hour of activation, break state, come back, identify what more you want from the book or material, and then you can do another break state. Another activation step. And you do as many of those. And we do say that it's best to do your activation steps in 20 minutes and 20 minutes to 30-minute segments, as long as you can stay focused and concentrated while you're learning the material.
Being able to really concentrate on activation, now that's probably the strongest part of what I do in photo reading, and I'm much more confident now that after I go through the process with a book, whichever of the many paths I take, whether it's for a lot of detail or just a quick brush through, I feel a lot more confident now that I'm going to have what I want at the end. And that's something I didn't have before. Before it was almost like, discovery. Am I going to get something out of it this time or not? And now I feel like, hey, this is the thing that I can do every time and get really substantial material out of the book at the level that I'm looking for.
And then you develop the level of high expertise with the information. And expertise is application, being able to know that you can take that material that you are learning and apply it in the way that you choose to apply it. And that's what expertise is. And rapid reading can be the fine-tuning of the application process, so that you know you can go out and do it. So awareness is the first level of comprehension. Familiarity is the next. Knowledge is the third one, which is when you pick it up in activation. And then expertise is the application, and that would be rapid reading. And you can do as many activations as you need and want on any type of material that you have.
I was not using all the tools at my disposal. I was just doing part of the process and not doing a good job of activating after I prepared and previewed and photo read.
You can take a highly information-dense text, and it provides you with a method of layering your learning of that text.
Before it seemed like I did this step and I did this step, and then hopefully at some point in time some gold nuggets would pop out.
You can go through it the first day, preview it, photo read it, set it aside, let it incubate, not worry about it, not feel all tied up about the fact that you didn't get anything or you did get anything.
Now I know what I want to get at the end of my process, and I can use all of these different tools, which ones are going to be best to get me there.
Come back the next day, preview it, photo read it, do some super reading and dipping if you wish, or photo read it 2 or 3 more times, and every day pick up more and more information as you go through.
Depending on the complexity of the material and how much I want out of it, I can go anywhere from a third of the time to I've finished books normally it would take me 10 hours and 30 minutes.
Hoping versus knowing is a very big difference.
In 5 years, I want to be done with law school, starting my law career, well on my way to partnership at a firm.
All these things are sort of coming together for me, and I realized that if I shift the focus of my own photo reading practice a little, I can actually improve the results quite dramatically. And I think that this is just the beginning, really.
chiropractic, it all starts with the basics.
It's about time, I think, that it's a renewal and a refresher of the 5 steps of photo reading.
Prepare, preview, photo read, activate, and rapid read. Go through the processes and then they become part of yourself, almost like second nature.
Well, when you know the steps better, the process is more fluid for you.
It just sort of reminds you about what are the key stages, because to bring them up, they must be important enough.
So we're going to start with that first one, which is prepare, right. So with prepare, there are really 2 parts, and these 2 parts are what we'll be doing no matter what other step of the system is involved. So the first thing that we do is purpose is key, purpose is in the center, purpose, without it, why bother?
Breaking it down, skimming through the book, finding out, where to look for is probably the hardest part for me. The anxiousness of, am I going to miss something in the book? Is there something in there that I'm not going to find? Or, those are probably the things that worry me the most. But then that all goes back to that I need to make sure I have a good purpose of why I'm reading this. What are my questions of it?
If you went to a travel agent and just said, hello, I'd like a ticket, and they might ask you some important questions. They might want to know what kind of climate you wanted to go to. They might want to know how long you were going to go for. They might want to know how many countries you wanted to travel to. So all of those things are included in prepare, because with prepare, what we're really looking at is how are we going to apply all this information in this book? What are we going to do with that? What is the chunk size that we need? It's easy to opt out and say, oh, I've just got to have it all. I've just got to have it all. No. Most of the time what we need is some information that is pertinent, valuable, important to us.
The unconscious can help in a tremendous way the conscious mind when you get the skills just to fit them together.
Just at the start, think about why do you want the book, and all the other stages will come to you.
These authors, when they write their book, they really do not think that you're going to carry around the entire word for word for word for word for word understanding of their book. What they know is that you're going to synthesize that into something that is useful for you. One of the things that we discovered a long, long time ago was the value of having a point of attention. Now, we have points of attention or points of focus for almost everything that we do, whether when we're talking, when we're presenting, when we're driving a car, when we're doing, any particular sport. But for reading, what they discovered with these incredibly effective readers was that there was a point of attention that really resided sort of about 12 to 14 inches above and behind the head. Now,
but I could not finish the material.
Of course, just trying to learn the kinds of things that I'm going to need to move into another business while at the same time I'm still practicing law because I still have to make a living means I have this tremendous time problem.
One of the things we're going to do today is we are going to review the 5 steps of the whole mind reading system with you, and we will want you to do some participation in that. So we would like you to have a book that you want, one, to get really in depth and in detail on that book.
I did the photo reading seminar, which was great. I loved it. It was a vacation for the mind.
The ability to photo read is the cornerstone of everything that I'm going to do as far as my future education, my legal education. It's integral to my thinking.
It helps me immensely to review the basics of the photo reading process, because everything and anything I've ever done in sports or martial arts,
my age is 31. Right now I'm trying to get into law school.
I don't think I'll ever want to totally close down my law practice because there's some things about that that I enjoy and that can really help people. But I want to get into a totally different line of work.
I want to help people with health and fitness and career direction and help people realize their full potential.
I plan to start another business involving furniture, and want to accomplish the photo reading whole mind system to get a wide prospect of what I can do to advance in that.
I was in college, my reading speed was about 110 words a minute, if that. And I was a history major, history, Asian area studies major, and it really hampered me. Love the material.